Well, hello out there in podcast land, and welcome to Get Hyped, the show where we get you hyped for the latest installment of Hollywood's biggest franchises. I'm your host of this episode, Lou Hare, for the Front Row Network. And of course, there is only one movie that we need to be talking about and getting hyped for right now.
Hellboy, right?
Sure. Hellboy. No, that'll be next year when I do it for Guilty Pleasures, apparently.
Oh, man.
What could have been. But no, in fact, there's a movie coming out this week, by the way. It's time. We have been building for it. It's 21 films, 10 plus years in the making. It's time to talk about Avengers Endgame. So we're here to get you hyped. We're here to catch you up on everything that you need to know going into Endgame, give you some predictions, some thoughts, and then at the very end, it's time. The Front Row Network has collaborated to put together our definitive ranking of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, of course, Endgame's a long-ass movie. This is going to be a long-ass podcast because we got a lot of stuff to cram in it. We're cramming a lot into it. And so we have assembled our own Avengers. We are the Avengers of podcasting to talk about this. So first off, our editor-in-chief, Mr. Jeremy Geckner. How you doing, Jeremy?
He always gets introduced first.
So I guess I'm the de facto Tony Stark, which I'll take. I'll take that.
There is nothing wrong with being Tony Stark.
Nothing at all.
I'll take that $30 million a movie salary as well, if that's all right with everyone else.
All right. And so then joining us is our associate editor-in-chief, Mr. Craig McFarland. So I guess, Craig, that might make you Cap. Are you okay with that?
First of all, in what hellacious world do you live where Tony Stark is the leader of the Avengers?
Hey.
This is so unreal.
Hey, to quote Tony Stark, he just pays for everything and, makes everything possible and all.
Including all of the villains in the MCU. Hey. You're right. He made everything possible. Everything that led to this moment, every little bit of Ultron, every little bit of every super villain.
We're going to get into this already. We are
all
five.
Tony Stark.
We're already happening.
We're five.
But yeah,
already.
I of course love Cap and want nothing for the best, but the best for him.
Okay. And joining us on the podcast, making his debut with the Front Row Network. This is my first time meeting him. So over the screen, he looks about 12. So I guess that makes you our Peter Parker.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that.
Please welcome to the podcast, Connor Maloney. How you doing, Connor?
Doing good. Glad to be here.
Cool.
Glad to be here.
Well,
I could see myself as Tom Holland.
Nice.
Yeah.
Welcome aboard. And as per tradition on the Front Row Network, before we get started, we need to ask you, what is your favorite movie?
I've narrowed it down to two, but I think I've decided my favorite all-time movie has got to be Aladdin.
All right.
Okay.
Hey, that's a solid pick.
Hey, Craig's the Disney guy. He hosts the Disney show, Connor. So you got a friend there.
20 second reaction to the live action Aladdin. You have 20 seconds. Go.
Magic stuff happening all over the place. Super cool effects.
There you go.
That's all nice. Magnificent.
Okay, good.
I've always wanted to perform in Aladdin in a musical or something like that. Always wanted to be the genie.
That's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, since you've all taken roles of Avengers, I'm going to take the Nick Fury role because I'm going to be the guy who's explaining all of this shit to you as we go through.
Nice.
I would have went Michael Pena myself. But...
Oh, dude.
Well, I cannot talk that fast.
Let's say I will pay you cash money to do this whole thing as Luis.
Okay. So part of what we like to do on Get Hyped is in case you haven't had time to get caught up, if you're not like us and haven't been binging the MCU leading up to this, if it's been a minute or maybe you just haven't gotten to Infinity War yet because you wanted to go back and talk about some of the earlier works to get you set up for this. What we're going to do now is I'm going to take you through the plot of Infinity War as quickly as I can. There's a lot of it, so this won't be our normal 60-second recap. And I guess we should if you're listening to a preview show for Avengers Endgame, you should know there's spoilers about literally every other MCU film coming your way. So that includes Infinity War spoilers. I don't know why you'd see Endgame without seeing Infinity War, but that's a whole nother story. And we are probably going to be talking Captain Marvel, so there's going to be some mild spoilers there. So you have been warned. There you go. Let's get into it. Anybody timing me on this? Please don't.
Okay, here we go. I got the timer.
All right.
Timer.
All right. Okay. Infinity War centers around Thanos, the bad guy teased in multiple Avenger post-credit scenes. Thanos is in pursuit of the Infinity Stones. These stones, once all in place, would give its owner power unlike anyone in the universe. Thanos first gets the Power Stone from a planet Xandar. He intercepts a spaceship carrying the surviving Asgardians who were forced to flee at the end of Thor Ragnarok. As they extract the Space Stone from the Tesseract, Thanos subdues Thor, overpowers Hulk, kills Loki and Heimdall, who sends Hulk to Earth using the Bifrost before being killed. Thor is abandoned but rescued by the Guardians of the Galaxy. Thor theorizes that Thanos seeks the Reality Stone, which is in the possession of the Collector on Nowhere. Rocket and Groot accompany Thor to Nidavellir. Am I saying that correct? Nidavellir, thank you. Where they meet Eitri, create Stormbreaker, a battle axe capable of killing Thanos. On Nowhere, Peter Quill, Gamora, Drax, and Mantis find Thanos with the Reality Stone already in his possession. Thanos kidnaps Gamora, his adopted daughter, who reveals the location of the Soul Stone to save her captive adopted sister Nebula from torture. Thanos and Gamora travel to Vormir, where Red Skull, keeper of the Soul Stone, informs Thanos the stone can only be retrieved by sacrificing someone he loves. Thanos reluctantly kills Gamora, earning the stone. Meanwhile, Hulk crash lands at the Sanctum Sanctorum in New York City, reverting back to Bruce Banner. He warns Doctor Strange and Wong about Thanos' plan to kill half of all life in the universe. In response, Strange recruits Tony Stark. Thanos' lieutenants arrive to retrieve the Time Stone from Strange, drawing the attention of Peter Parker. The good guys fight them off, but Doctor Strange is captured, so Stark and Parker follow Ma to space to rescue him. Meanwhile, Banner contacts Steve Rogers, Captain America, and Wong stays behind to guard the Sanctum. Meanwhile, Scarlet Witch and Vision are attacked in order to retrieve the Mind Stone in Vision's forehead. Rogers, Natasha Romanoff, Black Widow, and Sam Wilson, Falcon, rescue them and take shelter with Rhodey and Banner at the Avengers facility. Vision offers to sacrifice himself by having Scarlet Witch destroy the Mind Stone to keep Thanos from retrieving it. Rogers suggests they travel to Wakanda, which he believes has the resources to remove the stone without destroying Vision. Nebula escapes captivity and asks the remaining Guardians to meet her on Thanos' destroyed homeworld Titan. Stark and Parker rescue Strange. Landing on Titan, they meet up with Quill, Drax, and Mantis. The group forms a plan to remove Thanos' Infinity Gauntlet after Strange uses the Time Stone to view millions of possible futures, seeing only one in which Thanos loses. Thanos arrives, justifying his plans as necessary to ensure the survival of a universe threatened by overpopulation. The group subdues him until Nebula deduces that Thanos has killed Gamora. Enraged, Quill attacks him, allowing Thanos to break the group's hold and overpower them. Stark is seriously wounded by Thanos, but is spared after Strange surrenders the Time Stone to Thanos. Meanwhile, in Wakanda, Rogers reunites with Bucky Barnes before Thanos' army invades. The Avengers, alongside T'Challa and the Wakandan forces, mount a defense while Shuri works to extract the Mind Stone from Vision. Banner, unable to transform into the Hulk, fights Stark in Stark's Hulkbuster armor. Thor, Rocket, and Groot arrive to reinforce the Avengers. Thanos' army is defeated, but Thanos arrives and, despite Scarlet Witch's attempt to destroy the Mind Stone, removes it from Vision's head, killing him. Thor severely wounds Thanos, but Thanos activates the completed Infinity Gauntlet and, with a snap of his fingers, teleports away. Half of all life across the universe disintegrates, including Bucky Barnes, T'Challa, Groot, Scarlet Witch, Falcon, Mantis, Drax, Quill, Strange, Peter Parker, as well as Maria Hill and Nick Fury, although Fury is able to transmit a signal to Carol Danvers first. Stark and Nebula remain on Titan, while Banner, M'Baku, Okoye, Rhodes, Rocket, Rogers, Romanoff, and Thor are left on the Wakandan battlefield. Meanwhile, Thanos watches a sunrise on another planet.
4 minutes, man. Not bad. Not bad.
Not bad.
And then the title card appears.
Yeah.
That was, there was like no, that's, I guess, my first observation of the movie. Making the copy for this, like most movies, you can condense the plot into this movie had so much movie in it.
Yeah.
This like may have been the most movie of all time.
The most movie of any movie ever.
Like, because so much stuff happens and you can't like extract one for the other. I mean, other than to say Thanos gets all the stones, kills half of everybody, the end. But that's not what we do here. We wanted to make sure you were up to date. So while I catch my breath, let's go around real quick and get some first reactions back to when you first watched Infinity War. Jeremy, let's start with you.
I've watched it only 800 times since it first came out. And it really, like, even listening to you talk about it, Lou, is that the sheer amount of things that are in this movie, and yet every time you said one, I could immediately conjure up the image of it, and I could immediately conjure up the scene and the facial expressions, the special effects, everything. Every single scene in this movie makes a massive impression on you and is just a knockout scene that would be the pinnacle of any other movie. But now we just have an entire movie full of pinnacles. So the movie, the fact that it works as well as it does is a little mini miracle, but also I still am always captivated by the performance of Josh Brolin at the center of it. Like in many ways it's an Avengers movie, but it's really more Thanos the movie in my mind. And the fact that Brolin is able to give him a very strange, almost admirable conviction in his thinking about things. I mean, like, I remember Brolin in an interview said he thought he thinks of Thanos more as like an eco-terrorist type of guy. He's trying to do something terrible that will hurt a lot of people, but he has absolute conviction that he is doing the right thing and that it is ultimately the greatest good that he is doing. And the fact that Thanos and Brolin makes that apparent throughout this movie in just very quiet ways is still, I think, one of the best accomplishments of the film.
All right, cool. Craig, how about you?
Yeah, I remember going into it, there was like that subtle fear that the Russos were going to overstep here because you had so many storylines and so many people to try to appease in the story, but bringing it all together, I just remember leaving that movie theater just gobsmacked by the sheer amount of things that occurred in that movie in a relatively seamless way where it wasn't, it didn't seem very jumpy. It was pretty concise all the way through. But they really took you to the entire universe. I mean, they brought in the cosmic, they brought in our original heroes, they brought in the intricacies of those relationships, and in a way introduced people that had never met before just seamlessly. And it was just, even though obviously the ending was a bit traumatic initially, it was fun. I mean, it's just a fun movie. It goes to, obviously I'm a Captain America guy, but Captain America meeting Groot on the Wakanda battlefield is like one of the best moments, and it's just so sincere. And you get that because these actors have lived with these characters for 10 years, and they just all really brought it. You could tell that they had a lot of fun on the set, and that the Russos really knew what they wanted to do with this huge, ginormous story, and they delivered.
Sure. Okay, Connor, how about yourself?
Well, the thing was that I enjoyed the fact that it was not like every other Marvel movie, because like you can see a kind of a repetitive, how do I say this, a repetitive pattern in a couple Marvel movies, like, oh, the good guys always win and the bad guys always lose, and nobody really dies in these movies and nothing big happens like that except for like the final events of them. But this one, I like how they took a different term with it, and they decided, how about we switch it up a notch? How about we have it to where the bad guy is the bad guy, but yet he's got good intentions, so it's kind of harder to go against him than like other villains like Red Skull or Loki or anything like that. So they just decided, let's go with that and switch it up a bit and actually have him like win and actually shock people and have them walk out of that theater so confused, thinking this is not how Marvel movies go, and that will build up hype for Avengers Endgame because they want to see these characters come back and see how the remaining Avengers will do it. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you want to talk to borrow a word from our fearless leader here, an iconic moment, I think the snap is as iconic of a movie moment as you get in this generation. I think that's a moment. It is the Luke, I am your father for this generation. It's that, that holy shit, that just happened moment. And punctuated by, they're, you think kind of at first that maybe you're going to see some of like the kind of the sidekicks go away. Cause I think the first person you see is Bucky and you're like, oh, well maybe, but then all of a sudden Black Panther is gone and Star-Lord is gone. And then freaking Spider-Man is gone. And like that, it's insane that, that they could do that. And that they would do that, but the thing, and we'll move on in a minute because we're going to talk about Infinity War again when we get to the rankings. But what I liked about the movie is it's incredibly compartmentalized, but it all flows together well. You could jump into that movie kind of at any time. Yeah. And like, oh, now we're watching this storyline, and now we're watching this storyline. And the pairings that they figured, you mentioned that, Craig, all work really well. The pairing of Doctor Strange and Tony Stark works really well. And then you throw, Peter Parker in, that like group together works really well. Thor and Rocket together are a great pairing. It's just they somehow managed to figure out the best possible combinations of all of these people at the same time. And so,
and that's the Russos, Phil. I mean, like the Russos have to get all the credit here. They've made 3 MCU movies and they're all incredible. Connor has some thoughts about Winter Soldier that I think we're all going to differ on, but we'll save that for the rankings. But you're right. Like the fact that all of the tones of all these different genres and franchises that merge together. And yet it's a testament to Feige and to the rest of the directors that they all feel like they belong in that same universe. And the fact that that works. And you're right. The Russos, the way they do the snap, sucking all the soundtrack out and just those wind noises. And you're right. It's just such a stark moment. And it's one of those that even the comic book fans know that it happens, but it was still, even as a comic book fan, thinking, well, they're not going to do it. And then they oh crap, they're really doing it. And it was executed flawlessly.
Yeah.
I agree. You are right, Lou, the host of this show.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not Phil.
Once again,
oh my God, did I call you Phil?
You did.
You know what's funny about that? I wanted to call you Phil earlier and I caught myself. What the heck is wrong with me?
That's all right. I
have some vision mind stone problems here.
I can't determine if that's because you're thinking of my father Phil or if you're thinking of Phil Rockwell. I'm not sure which, and I'm not sure which one should be more offended about.
You should just be offended all around.
We'll just move on. Connor,
my apologies, Lou.
Thank you. Connor, you had something you wanted to add?
I actually have to just go and get my charger real quick. I forgot to put my computer on the charger real quick, but I'm sorry about that. Just keep talking.
Computer's about to be snapped, man.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Such a Peter Parker move.
Yeah, man.
Okay, so let's get into some of the things that we know about Endgame. And trust us, before you get nervous, we're not going into spoiler territory here. We're not on Reddit. We haven't watched any leaked footage or anything. This is all information culled from what we've been given by the filmmakers. So we're not here to harsh anyone's buzz or ruin. I don't want to be spoiled. We want to be hyped, not spoiled. That's our mission here.
This is all official Marvel Disney released information.
Yes, exactly. So we don't want to be on the Disney naughty list. So what we do know about Endgame is the same creative team that put Infinity War together is in place again. It's directed once again by the Russo brothers. It's written by the same writing team of Stephen McFeely and Christopher Marcus, who I think deserve a heck of a lot of credit as well for this.
Yeah.
What we also know is that it's going to be the longest MCU movie yet. It is clocking in at 3 hours and 2 minutes.
Hell yeah.
Don't drink any water.
Yep, don't drink any water. Make sure you eat some real salty snacks.
Or just keep the cup.
Get dehydrated. Oh, good Lord. That would be where a drive-in experience would be great, because you could just walk behind the car. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
No, never mind. So what, and we've seen in multiple trailers. So a couple of things that I pointed out, and then you guys can join in. We notice, obviously, we see that Tony Stark does make it back to Earth, although we don't know how. We know that Captain Marvel joins the team, not just from the trailers, but from what we got from the post-credit scene from Captain Marvel. We see that Ant-Man and Hawkeye are back. They were absent from the previous films. They survived the snap. We know that Ant-Man's teammates, Wasp and the Van Dynes, did not survive the snap. We learned that from the post-credit scene of Ant-Man and the Wasp. And we do see the remaining Avengers formulating a plan and going to space. So that's what I got. Any other takeaways from all the information that we've received about the film? Anything I'm missing here?
No, well, I mean, there was a report, and I mean, we can take this for what it is, but like the report that was coming out of Disney HQ right before all the trailers and clips started dropping is that no footage would be screened or released to the public that was outside of the first 15 minutes of the film. Now, judging by some of the shots we've seen in these trailers, there's some pretty epic looking action that we've seen in these trailers. And so if that's the case, that means we're going to be nonstop, wall-to-wall, 3 hours of crazy Marvel action here. And I think that is enough to get you hyped already. I mean, you see those scenes of like Nebula and Rogers on the battlefield somewhere looking very, very intensely drowned out there and drummed on. Like that, if that's happening in the first 15 minutes of this movie, like who the heck knows what we're in for?
My prediction about all that, though, Jeremy, is that anywhere from 60 to 85% of that trailer is fake footage.
Yeah, tell them why.
Because they, the Russos said that well, first of all, they did it to us once. They had the Wakanda battlefield. They had Hulk running down the Wakanda battlefield in the trailers. But they said, particularly on this film, that they made an effort to film extra scenes that they could put out in the trailers that aren't going to be actually in the actual movie. So they were able to do that to us once, and I think they're going to do it to us again. What I will say about the first 15 minutes, if that holds, and the first 15 minutes of this movie is the trailer, it makes a lot of sense to me, because I think you have to have that first initial, we're going to go try to beat up Thanos, and then we're going to get clobbered again. You know? And I think that has to happen almost right away to set his dominance over them, because everyone's just assuming, and myself included, that Captain Marvel coming into the field, she's just going to be able to take this guy out fairly quickly. So if you can establish that that's not going to be the case, much like they did in the first film, where immediately you're on that Asgardian ship and Thor, one of the strongest heroes we have.
The two strongest heroes.
And Hulk as well. You're right. They're both just kind of literally thrown aside by Thanos. So I think that it's going to be in a very similar way. They're going to show our heroes fly to him, go to whatever planet he's on, attempt to fight him, and it's not going to go well. And then that's where they can kind of redeem and rebuild from there.
Okay. Interesting. Connor, do you get anything that you've picked up from watching the trailers or reading anything online that you think is that we haven't covered yet?
Well, you guys have definitely covered a lot more than what I could, but I have been watching a lot of like snippets of it. Like I know I'm not supposed to, because I'm trying not to dive into the spoiler territory and seeing too much, but I can't help it. So I just watch every single trailer there is, and I stop on every frame just to see. And so I see that at one point there's like this frame where Rhodey and Rocket are like sliding down this like platform. And I think that Thanos might do, or somebody might do something to the Avengers HQ.
Yeah.
Or something like that. That's what I heard about. And there's been a lot of speculation about a future like new villain for this movie. So maybe it was them, and I think that there's a chance that they might actually end up possibly teaming up with him in the end with Thanos. I mean, that's just a far-fetched. That could be far-fetched, but I think that that could be a theory that they might need Thanos' help or just the gauntlet, and they might try to go and have him help them get it back or something.
Yeah, that's an interesting theory that I've read too, Connor, and that's the sense of Thanos does what he thinks is going to save the universe. It has unintended consequences that actually put the universe in more peril, and then there has to be an uneasy alliance of sorts to defend against that. I do find that theory interesting, and I think that would be an interesting film. And again, I don't want to go too far into I have a theory that I think is right, but I don't know if I want to put it out in the world.
That's not my theory at all. I don't even believe it.
Kind of take away some shock value in terms of stuff. But I do think that, Craig, I think you're right on in terms of that there is going to be an early battle with Thanos here, and the Avengers are not going to win it. And it is going because, I mean, you see through these trailers, it's been made fun of on the internet already, but like Natasha Romanoff's hair clock is what it's called. And you see her hairdo in a certain way. And in the clip that we talk about, where they're talking about formulating a plan to go get Thanos, she has her shorter blonde hair, which is what she has in Infinity War. And then in later clips of these trailers, she has longer red hair. And that is kind of a sense of, there's going to be this early battle. There's going to be something there, but they are going to lose and lose so badly that it shakes them for probably years to come. And I think that would be a very interesting way to take this, where they have to deal with the depression of not only losing their friends, but knowing there's nothing they can do about it with all of the power that they collectively have.
Yeah, no, I think all of that sounds it's very interesting because there's lots of different ways they can go with it. I think one of the things that I notice, and I guess it's none of these are spoilers because these are the images that they're giving us, so they're right. More kind of teasers than anything. Is that obviously we're gonna get the reuniting of the Avengers is going to happen very quickly, as you all mentioned, particularly the reuniting of Cap and Tony, which I think that relationship is maybe really at the heart of the Avengers movies themselves. And I think how they reconcile and how they figure out how they're going to defeat Thanos is kind of going to be the heart, because one of the things that I've in the press that we've been reading a lot, and what I kind of noticed today with the last trailer that came out today was they are really pushing this narrative of this is the end of the series of films that we have done. So everything we're going to do after that is going to be completely new. So in many ways, this is almost like a series finale. Which does it. So that to me indicates this. I know everybody's excited about Captain Marvel being on board, and I think she's going to play an integral role, but I don't think she's going to play as integral of a role as people are thinking or hoping, because at the end of the day, this is a movie building up everything that's led before, and to have the character we just introduced 6 weeks ago be the centerpiece of this, I don't think is that's not that's my working theory, is that she will be certainly a pivotal role, but at the end of the day, this is going to come back to the Avengers. This is going to focus on the main characters, which is again one of the other reasons that all of the Avengers themselves were the ones who survived the snap. They didn't take out any of the quote unquote original Avengers. So
Yeah, and actually, I heard an interesting way of thinking about that is, like, if you think about it in comics terms, it's like this is like the cap of an omnibus of comics. Like, these 22 films are like the MCU proper omnibus, and now we're about to head into a completely new corner of the MCU. Kevin Feige a couple of days ago said that there's a 5-year plan that they have post Avengers that is insanely different from what they've done the last 10 years. So I like the thought of that too, Lou, and I think that it's going to encompass that. It's going to be a legitimate cap on what we've known the MCU to be.
All right, so I have a question for y'all. The snapped, the goners. Is there any, and I'm not saying that you necessarily believe this, but is there any argument that you can make that some or all of them would not come back? Or is it just a complete given that for sure, because we've got these sequels lined up, we've got all this going forward, they have to come back?
To be fair, they've been pretty mum on what the actual confirmed sequels are.
Well, see,
and what I'll say is, I don't buy into any of that either. I just, for the sake of argument, because
it'd be a cool fake out.
Well, because the thing is, people got their stuff in a bunch right away because they were like, well, Infinity War is a lesser movie because we know that these people are coming back. We don't know that necessarily all of them are coming back, right? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, are they going to get rid of T'Challa when he just had $1 billion film nominated for Best Picture? Probably not.
That'd be commercial suicide.
But at the same time, like, let's dive into a world where that's a possibility, and how would they play that? Any of you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard theories about that too, because the only official confirmed movies post Endgame are Spider-Man: Far From Home. Black Panther 2 has been confirmed because Coogler has been confirmed for it. And then I believe the Shang-Chi movie is the only, and the Black Widow movie. I think those are the only 4.
Well, and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
That's been bandied, but it hasn't been. I mean, I know Gunn has been brought on officially, but it hasn't been as kind of like.
Typically, you don't hire a director for a movie you don't intend on.
I hear you, but I'm telling you, like, that would be, to Crick's point, that would be an ultimate fake out, wouldn't it, by Marvel? I mean,
oh, come on, Phil. What are you doing?
Well, and I just think that, like, but I heard that theory as well, Craig, and they said, like, like, what if it was crazy? Everybody's talking about Doctor Strange 2 would be one of these post Endgame movies, and what if they just kept Doctor Strange dead? And I was like, that'd be very interesting. I don't know, and I think it's within Marvel's power to do that. I mean, like, I wouldn't put it past them.
If I had to get, sorry, Lou, not to cut you off. If I had to guess, the one that may truly not come back, I think that Vision is a likely candidate for that. I think that having the Mind Stone gone, there's that romantic tension between Scarlet Witch and him. I think that he's enough of a tertiary Avenger that it would still make an impact, but not like necessarily a game changer. So if I had to guess, that's a possibility of one of our dead that's not coming back. I also don't know that Loki's coming back. I mean, Tom Hiddleston has a Disney Plus show coming out, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to be like in this time. It could be some kind of prequel Loki type show. But anyway, Lou, I totally interrupted you.
No, I think all of the, I think it's fair to say, and I kind of feel that all of the pre-snap deaths are final.
Yeah, I think Gamora's gone.
However, however, I do see a world in where Vision can come back because Vision dies during the Battle of Wakanda. Mm-hmm. So and this again, not to get into too spoiler theories, but if time travel is involved and they end up back on that battlefield in Wakanda, Vision is there because he hasn't died yet. So, but that is a possibility. And I gotta say, the more what I really like how tight-lipped they were on most of their films, but what I guarantee is not a fake out are the new MCU television shows that were just announced for Disney Plus. And I'll be honest, that kind of bummed me out a little bit because all of the shows that they mentioned, with the exception of the Hawkeye spinoff, featured characters that are currently dead. Falcon and Winter Soldier are dead. WandaVision is which apparently is a thing now. They're dead, and so I don't see, and in their timelines, I don't see wiggle room to make a series around those characters that happens parallel to or prior to the events of Infinity War. Okay. So I mean, I gotta say, I also think. Kind of to your guys' point, I mean, another popular theory is that the original Avengers, the actors are all moving on to different things. So if you're going to have a world without Captain America, without Iron Man, without Thor, you got to have somebody. Like, you know, it's gonna be Captain Marvel and Rocket Raccoon, which I'd see the shit out of that movie. But you know, if you're making a whole nother, you know, branch and series of films, it only makes sense that some of those get brought back. Now, can some get brought back only to die in battle? Possibly. I don't know. But that is, you know, that's one of the nice things about how they ended Infinity War is there's a lot of questions to be answered, and it's again, it's one of the great cliffhanger endings because it gets you excited for it, and it leaves a lot of things open ended.
Do you feel like some very loudly online feel that it cheapens, like all these announcements of future properties cheapen Endgame in some way? Or I live in this world where I've read comic books and no one dies in comic books, you know, other than Uncle Ben. We used to be able to say Uncle Ben and Bucky Barnes were the two that actually died in a comic book, and then they brought Bucky Barnes back. So, you know, I guess I never had that experience, but what are your opinions? Do you feel like it cheapened anything?
Well, I'm not a comic book reader. I've only seen these films. So, but I'll tell you what I am. I am a pro wrestling fan.
Oh, man. I used to be.
And here's the thing. Pro wrestling always has retirement matches. They don't stick either. So I don't think it cheapens anything as long as the comeback is worth it. As long as if they come back and it sets up this, and we are joined in mid-thought by an already stewing,
literally teleporting in via space stone like Thanos, man.
Just grips midair, just goes boom, just appears immediately.
Scott McFarlane has joined us. Welcome, Scott.
I shit you not, I'm in my t-shirt and underwear right now. I was ready to go to bed.
Nice.
And
I
started watching the YouTube live.
Oh god.
And you guys you're not even paying attention to what actually is going on. Craig's like, "What? Vision's dead. They're making a freaking TV show, Craig. Pay attention."
I'm talking about
they're making a Loki TV show, Craig. Pay attention.
But Loki, I feel, has enough past backstory where you can do a ton of stuff with that.
And yes, okay, and Jeremy, to you. I'm not making fun of just Craig. Jeremy, to you.
Bring it on, man.
Let's just keep Doctor Strange dead. Good thing you're never running a movie studio ever in your life. Because you just gave up $1 billion in that one statement.
Yeah, it's Disney, man. They blow that on craft services.
Let's let him stay dead, and I will just write off this $1 billion and just throw it to the wind.
Pumpkin Patch is busy doing Hamlet over in London or something, man.
I think maybe you missed the beginning of that whole statement where we
did.
Where we were like, you know, this would be hypothetical. People are saying, what if people don't come back? And I said, I don't buy into any of this.
Oh, okay.
Typical politician. I'm going to come in and make some bold statements. That's what I've read. I haven't read the whole thing, but I've got strong feelings.
I was putting the kids to bed. There you go. If you were paying attention to your live chat, and you just responded to me there, I wouldn't have popped on.
Yeah, but then we would miss this, man. I mean, come on.
In our analogy of Avengers, in case anyone's wondering who our Hulk is.
Yeah,
we know.
Yeah, I have a theory.
Okay, Connor, bring it. What you got?
All right. So I think that Hulk and Bruce Banner is not actually Bruce Banner. I think that that's actually Loki cloning himself.
I've heard this. Okay, explain yourself. Why do you think so?
Apparently, Loki, as soon as Loki and Thor saw the giant Thanos ship, apparently, here's how the theory goes, is that Loki cloned someone to look like him who had, like, decent skill set and had, like, and could possibly, potentially, I don't know, have the same attitude, I guess I should say.
Mm-hmm.
But so that way that he could pretend to be Hulk, which is why that he could have gotten overpowered by Thanos, not because he was stronger, because like Thanos, I doubt that Thanos is stronger than Hulk without the Infinity Gauntlet, because remember when he was fighting Hulk, he only had like what 1 or 2 Infinity Stones, which
would have had the Power Stone. Yeah,
he didn't even activate the Power Stone.
Yeah, but it wasn't even activated. Yeah,
wasn't activated. So and that could explain also why he couldn't really turn into full-on Hulk mode as soon as he got to Wakanda, because that Loki didn't really, I guess, know how to. Which there is a whole plot hole with that, to where he could have just like shapeshifted into the Hulk. But I also think that if he would have done that, he would have not also possessed the same strength as the Hulk, which would have led to an even bigger problem. And so he decided to go into the Hulkbuster armor, and he got there like, oh, this is my way out. And where the real Bruce Banner is, that I don't know.
He's lying dead on the bridge in Ragnarok after falling out of that jet.
Oh yeah.
All right. No, well, I like that. I like that theory, Connor, and that's going to get us to. I want everybody real quick before we get to our MCU rankings. We got a couple of things I want to touch first. But first of all, give me one bold prediction for Avengers Endgame. One thing that you are predicting is going to happen.
I know, Scott.
Scott, let's start with you, because you've been telling us this for months. Unless you've got something different,
Doctor. Come on.
Just this once, everybody lives.
All right. So your take is that there are no even everybody's coming back. Everyone's living.
Heimdall's dead because he doesn't want to come back.
Okay. Right.
And I would even give you Loki, just because when they're doing the Loki TV show, and this sounds awesome, by the way. Speaking of the Doctor, the premise I heard was that the Loki show is basically Doctor Who if the Doctor was a jackass. So there's a lot of time travel and just showing up in the middle of history and saying, "I'm gonna screw with the Romans."
Okay,
he can do that without being. He can do that
like a jerkish version of Legends of Tomorrow. I freaking love it.
Yes. So your prediction then. So I'm getting this right. Everybody from the snap victims are all coming back. All the original Avengers, everyone survives. That's your bold prediction.
Yeah, and they may go off somewhere else, and I'm sure we can talk about that later. Like, I still love the idea that Steve Rogers uses the time stone and goes back for his date. I'm good with that, but no one's going to be buried. And that includes Gamora, who right now is stuck in the Soul Stone.
Well, okay. That is pretty bold.
All right, Jeremy, what is your bold prediction?
Again, this is dark corners of the internet, and so I hope that I'm wrong here, but it's the one that keeps coming back to me, and that is, I think that in this battle with Thanos at the beginning of the movie that I'm assuming happens, I think Carol is killed in it. I think they kill Carol.
$1 billion check gone.
No. I don't think she stays dead, Scott. I don't think she stays dead. But I think that they have this, like, and you saw from the scene, like, I'm the thing you didn't have before. I think they go up there, and if Thanos dispatches her, then that can lead to the 2-year depression that we need to get them back into, that thing. So I think timey-wimey stuff, can bring her back.
Timey-wimey.
But I think that at the beginning of this movie, we're going to see a Carol Danvers death.
Ooh. All right, Craig, what's your bold prediction?
I know we've been arguing about this for a year, but hear me out. I feel like, to me, if everyone were to live, to me, that would lessen Thanos as a true villain. And I feel like I think you can accomplish a lot with having a sacrifice, and I think it's going to be the true leader of the Avengers that sacrifices himself. And I do think that Captain America is going to die in this film. We've already gotten, Chris Evans oopsied and said goodbye to the MCU on his last day of filming. And I just think that it makes sense because truly, I mean, Scott's brought up rightly very many times that Infinity War, the Avengers score didn't play until Captain America came on the scene. He truly is the first Avenger, and so I feel like if any of those guys are going to sacrifice, I don't know that it's going to be Tony Stark. I think if this happens, my bold prediction would be that it's got to be Cap.
I can just imagine him arguing as to why he shouldn't sacrifice himself.
Yeah, because Tony Stark's awful.
I think I
gotta go marry Goop Lady.
Don't even get me started on Goop.
Yeah. Well, and
anti-vaccine creepos.
And I agree with you, Craig, because I've been on the fence too about thinking. I feel that it's in both characters' arcs, both Cap and in Tony Stark, to possibly sacrifice themselves in this war. I think a noble sacrifice to me makes a lot of sense for Tony, given where he came from in the beginning of this series to the end. However, he is taken on this kind of father figure role to Peter Parker, who I believe is coming back. They've teased.
That's a huge prediction.
Yeah, but I know.
Coming out
really got the hot take there. But they also teased him and Pepper having a child, and so it seems like that's a little too dark for Marvel for him to have a child only to die. So I do think it makes narrative sense for Cap to sacrifice himself. So I guess it's both a prediction and kind of a wish. And that is ultimately because I think you've got to write all of these characters. These main characters are going to, one way or another, not going to be with us moving forward. I think Tony might show up like as the new kind of Nick Fury of the Avengers of the future series.
Which happens in the comics.
So, which to me would mean either Nick Fury dies, or what my hope is, is that the final shot of this film mirrors the final shot of Infinity War of a retired, satisfied Nick Fury on a lake, knowing he has completed his mission of bringing together the world's greatest superheroes and defeating evil.
And so Craig's right, getting half of them killed.
Well, he said one.
I said one person.
Just one.
I do have a question for you, Scott.
One person that honestly probably should have died in Civil War. I mean, let's be real.
Wasn't it Rhodey anyway? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Basically. I have a question for you, Scott, but I want to get Connor's bold prediction first.
Well, okay. I have more of I'm going kind of generic here whenever I say this, but I think of it more as this is going to be a passing the torch down type of way. Like all of the Avengers almost get replaced by the new Avengers. Like I'd say either Falcon or Bucky is going to probably replace Cap because they're two of his best friends. Iron Man would probably be taken by Peter Parker, by Spider-Man, because like he's the kid. That'd make the most sense. Either that or his fiance Pepper. Forgot her name for a second. Pepper. Either she would take some of the tech like she did in Iron Man 2 or 3. I forgot which one it was. And take that mantle. And then I'm not sure who would take Thor and Hulk though. But I just feel like that it'd be like Doctor Strange, Ant-Man, Bucky, like kind of like how they formed a new Avengers after Age of Ultron. Yeah, kind of like how they did that, but in a new way. And I do think that Cap is going to sacrifice himself, and Tony is probably going to get himself. He's probably going to die in battle or something like that, unintentionally. I think because that'd be a little bit of a darker twist. Because I think that the originals might have to bite the dust here because
all of them.
Now not all of them.
My brother's gonna come after you.
No, that's good though. I like that.
I can't tell
the only follow-up I would have to your theory, Connor, is that if there are 3 people that hate the MCU and being any part of it, and that's Idris Elba. It's Idris Elba, who's already dead. It's Natalie Portman, who disappeared.
Might as well be.
And it's Gwyneth Paltrow, who said she's done after this movie. So that's the only thing. I wouldn't necessarily think that Pepper is going to be anywhere near near and dear. But outside
I like
of that,
the idea of Peter taking that, like you said, though.
Yeah, because like I don't like how. But the one thing I can complain about with Peter is that he's kind of like an Iron Man Jr. And I know that's how they had to bring him in. It's just I like the original like Tobey Maguire type where he was self-made. He was his own character, and he wasn't trying to be an Avenger. He was trying to be his own character, trying to do good for everybody, and not just trying to prove himself to Mr. Stark, the big almighty, trying to be his own superhero.
So you prefer jazz hands, Tobey Maguire?
Okay. There you go. Okay, Lou, if I could, real quick, one question to Scott.
Go for it.
Okay, and Craig, I guess. Scott, if this movie ends with Steve Rogers dead, but reunited with Peggy in some kind of afterlife. Would that satisfy you?
Like Titanic.
Yes.
Here's the thing.
Yes, Craig. Titanic, Captain America ending.
By the way, Titanic. The woman got off the boat and married a dude for like 67 years. That guy.
Yeah,
that
where's
guy
he?
Doesn't count. You gave up 60 years of your life to this woman.
Where's Mr. Calvert, man?
We have a whole. Anna and I have a whole dish on that movie, which, by the way, has 70,000 views on YouTube.
And about 70,000 comments.
Because people think it's the movie.
Yeah, because it's like part one of the movie. No, but Scott, like seriously, what if like they end up in like the Soul Stone together, something like that?
Lou,
I would think it'd be like an after credits scene. Like I think it'd be an after credits scene.
I will say this: you all think that if somebody does croak, I'm going to be completely upset and throw my chair in the crappy theater we're going to be in and walk out. But no, the whole point is, I'm not the one who's going to be upset. The ones who are going to be upset are the bloodletting fans. You're like, no one died. How dare they not ruin? It's like DC. How dare they? If it's a good film, I'm going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
The end.
That's the way that I wish everybody would look at a movie.
Oh, don't give him that, Connor. We can't. I know you're new here, but you've got
he's a young man.
You learn, young Peter Parker. We don't antagonize the hope.
We didn't even give him a superhero. Who would his superhero be?
He's 100% our Hulk.
Oh yeah.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
Incredibly intellectual with the rage.
Yes.
Yeah. No, as long as I'm Dr. Banner, Dr. Banner. Okay.
No, but I think to me it's not. It's and we'll segue, and so I'll just give my 2 cents on it. Is that I don't need a character. I think you said it right, Scott. I don't need a character to die for me to enjoy this film. If they can give a good ending to the characters that we're not going to get any longer. However you choose to end the arc of these characters, as long as you end it in a way that makes sense to the characters, that does justice to the characters, I'm okay with whether they live or die. I do agree with Craig to a certain degree that I think if Thanos is defeated without claiming a single victim, he is, I do think that it's not going to ruin the films for me, but it does ultimately make him less of maybe one of the greatest villains of all time to, I guess he was pretty threatening for a minute there till they figured out how to,
right.
get everybody back alive and defeat him. So I do think that they've been defeated. But especially if time travel's involved and you can reverse a defeat, whatever, I don't know, but I think whatever we get, as long as we get a proper send off to those characters that honors the characters, I'm good.
When you have on the battlefield all 60 some odd Avengers and Cap says Avengers assembled or is Avengers assemble, you're not going to care who's dead and who's not. No. It's going to be an amazing because we're going to get it. That's my prediction. I've been saying this since 2012. Yeah. We're going to get Avengers assembled.
I want that so bad.
So I'm calling an audible here. We don't necessarily need to go around and tell how hyped we are. I think you can tell by the enthusiasm of us talking for already almost an hour. We're all hyped. Wow. I got my ticket. I'm going opening weekend. I know most of you guys are too, if not opening night. So we're gonna leave it at that. I mean, if you can't be hyped for this movie at this point, you're probably
you're a DC fan.
You're a DC fan. The MCU ship has sailed for you, and good luck. That's that. And why are you listening to this? I don't know either. So
go home and wank off to BVS and call it a
day. Good Lord. All right. So all right. So here it is, folks. So we figured the best way to honor the end of this series, or at least of this phase, is to give you an updated ranking of all of the films, all 21 films leading up to Avengers Endgame. So here's what we did. We
Hope you packed a lunch.
Yeah. We reached out to contributing members to the Front Row Network. All 5 of us contributed our rankings, but in addition to myself, Scott, Craig, Jeremy, Connor, we also received submissions from our fill-in Flashbacks host, Ryan Lutens, our newest contributor to the website, Steve Sykes, Phil Rockwell, the host of Pop Culture Draft Night, one of our newest correspondents who you heard on the latest bracket night, Aaron McCabe, and of course, a regular to Guilty Pleasures in the front row, my lovely wife, Donna Hare, contributed her list as well. So that is 10 people total.
I really appreciate that we had a couple women.
Diversity.
I thought that was important. We did get a couple of females contributing. So it is nice to have a little bit of a balance there. So what we've done.
This is such a sea of white. It's not even funny.
Well, hey, we're baby steps. We'll get there. Yeah. We're in what, phase 2 or 3 of our universe by the time we get to, we'll start incorporating. But anyway,
cosmic people.
So what we've done was I've taken everybody's ranking. I've assigned a point for every points based on rankings, collaborated, put them all together. And here's our rankings. So are you guys ready?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Are we going to go from the bottom to the top?
We're going to go for Yep. We're counting down. So
it's not Iron Man 3.
We're going to go in segments here. Or we just going to get them all out there.
I think I'll go in chunks based on like kind of gaps.
What?
Because
time out. I'm sorry. Did I just hear that kid say
you did.
Captain America Winter Soldier to be at the bottom of the list? I'm sorry.
No,
I don't know.
No joke. He had it second to last on his list.
Are you serious?
Easy, kids. We'll get there. We're going to get there.
I'm going to mute myself right now.
Look, again, man. All right. Front row Avengers. Just simmer down. Keep it. We got to get through this. All right. So starting off our list, number 21, the consensus number 21 is Thor: The Dark World.
Aww. Fair enough.
This movie got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 last place votes. So half of the panel agreed that it was
perfectly balanced.
Yes, and then the highest ranking that it got was
Connor's.
No, was not Connor. Connor was with the group here.
Yeah, second to last.
Both.
I didn't like it.
So, and again, not too much higher. So there's pretty much consensus here because the highest ranking it got was 18, and that was by Phil and Aaron. So anywhere between 18 to 21, everyone agrees this is a bottom 3 bottom 3 MCU movie, Thor: The Dark World. Any comments, or can we move on?
No.
Well.
Please don't make us talk about Thor: The Dark World, Connor.
I was going to say, I agree with you guys on this one.
There you go. All right, there we go.
It should have been Iron Man 3, but this is my second to last.
Right.
For God's sake.
So coming in at number 20, The Incredible Hulk.
Oh,
this movie received the lowest ranking was Aaron McCabe gave it 21. She ranked it last, but we had 4 people agree that it was the second worst film of the MCU. The highest that this got was a 17 by Ryan and Phil. So again, Scott, you had this at 18, so you had the slightly low, just one lower than them. But Ryan and Phil actually had it high. But again, still in that kind of lower third there. Coming in, any comments about the Incredible Hulk before we move on from this?
Can I just tell you how happy I am that Edward Norton is a dick on set, because Mark Ruffalo is such a better Hulk.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
I will say I did just rewatch this for my MCU rewatch, and it's better than people think. It's a better movie than people like the reputation.
And Abomination is still out there, right?
Yeah,
he was mentioned in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So
they could bring him back.
It's way too late to beat a dead horse, but this movie, if you haven't seen it or if you haven't seen it in a while, ignore the MCU connections. It's the only one you get is at
Tony
the end.
Stark.
Yeah, and Thunderbolt. But at this point, it's a good film. It's a good introduction to the Hulk without having to do the origin story again. And it's the reason why I love it. It's an homage to the 1970s Hulk TV show. So. Bill Bixby shows up in it twice. Lou Ferrigno shows up in it. They play the Lonely Man theme.
Yeah.
It is, for me who grew up on the Hulk TV show, this is the movie of that.
Sure. And I think that there's a maybe a warning label here, because I don't think, with maybe a couple of exceptions from some of these by individuals, I don't think collectively we're saying any of these movies maybe are bad movies necessarily.
No
I think you're just ranking them in terms of, because again, I think we'd all watch The Incredible Hulk over most of the DC EU
Yes.
output at
All
this
of it.
point.
All of it.
And there was a 9-point gap between Thor: The Dark World and Incredible Hulk. So Thor's clearly that one's
Let's
clearly
have
at
it
the
bad.
bottom. I think that's the only one maybe you can argue is not a good movie.
Right.
That the rest of these I think are varying degrees of okay to wow, holy shit. So
Yeah.
moving along. Number 19 coming in just 4 points ahead of Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2. Not Iron Man 3, Iron Man
Really?
2. Yeah, this movie had 3 people rank it the worst in the series. That would be Craig, Steve, and Phil. And
they're all fired.
And the person who gave it the highest ranking was Donna, who ranked it 15. So again, we're still in that lower third here. I don't think there's not a lot of degrees. I'll say I've got it. I've got it a little bit higher. I got it at 16, but I watched it the other day, and it's maybe one of the more throwaway movies of the MCU. As much as I like Tony, his character grows more in Iron Man 3, I think, and I think this is you can and the handling of it, the introduction of Black Widow's character really does not age well.
No. No, it does not. But the movie is kind of like a cartilage to the rest of the MCU. You know, like this was kind of like the setup movie.
The movie is a trailer to the MCU.
Right. No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is too. And I think what's interesting too, so many of the movies that we're going to talk about at the bottom are some of those earlier films. And I think you're going to see they really start to figure some stuff out like post Avengers. But anyway, so moving in up one notch to number 18. There's my Casey Kasem for you. 4 points ahead of Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3.
There we go. Finally.
There we go. Okay.
Coming in at 8. Yeah.
What so this travesty of a film.
Man, you guys just hate soldiers with PTSD.
I hate movies that don't know how to handle PTSD.
Triggered.
Let Lou or Phil, whatever his name
is, Phil.
Get through this.
Please.
And then I have a comment.
Okay, so Iron Man 3, the highest ranking. This is maybe the biggest divide between the highest and the lowest, save for one other movie we'll talk about in a little bit. To the surprise of no one who's been listening, Scott has this as his lowest. He's got it at 21, at ranked at 21. Phil Rockwell, he has it number 8. He's got it all the way up at the top. Man. That was enough to get it above Iron Man 2 in the rankings. Everyone else, pretty middle to lower. We've got a couple of 18s, some 15s, a 19 and a 20. So, yeah, again, we're still in that pretty consensus pick aside from 2 people on opposite ends of the spectrum.
All right, so here's my comment about this movie. I'm okay with them allowing for individual directors to put their spin on things. James Gunn did it beautifully in Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm very glad he's back for Guardians 3. The Russos have kind of put their own spin on. You can kind of tell it's a Russo film when you watch Winter Soldier, Civil War, and Infinity War. Shane Black made a Shane Black movie. He didn't make an MCU movie. And so they threw away Iron Man's best villain. And what they ended up doing with this villain is they tried to save themselves by putting it as a DVD extra to one of the future movies that he really wasn't the Mandarin. So, it just isn't a great movie. And one last point, if Tony Stark is so powerful and if Iron Man is so great, then why do we go through 56,000 marks throughout this entire film? I mean, they are throwing pop cans. They're throwing pop cans at Iron Man and they're exploding. Like, I mean, it is insane the amount of Iron Man tech that they go through in this film. And I get that it looks pretty, but it's very Shane Blackish, and it's not. To me, this is the least like any other MCU film. I appreciate the PTSD aspect. That's carried through in Tony's character. Outside of that, I do not care for anything else in this movie.
And the real frustrating thing about the Mandarin is, yes, the Mandarin in the comics is racist. They fixed it. With Ben Kingsley, they fixed it. The way they made the Mandarin in that film, if they would have carried that through, he would have been one of the better villains in that phase, if not continuing on. Because he was and this was 2013, 2014. He
13,
was a terror.
think,
He was a terrorist. It made perfect sense. What?
No, I just thought of something that could.
No, but
it would just set you off.
Okay, again though, but look, like in the not in the post credit scene though, guys. In the movie, Ben Kingsley, Trevor Slattery says that they gave him plastic surgery to look like someone. So look, they can still have Ben.
But it's still okay. Thank you for making fan theories into a better film than what the film was. Congratulations.
No, that's what the script says. That's what his character says.
And here's the other travesty. If you're gonna throw that, you better damn well have a very good villain to make up for it. And whatever the hell Dragon isn't boy from AIM is. Yeah.
Lou, am I allowed to throw a bomb and then let's just move on?
Sure. Throw a bomb and run away? Absolutely.
Shane Black is to Iron Man 3 as Ryan Johnson is to The Last Jedi. Boom.
I'm not even engaging.
So you mean
I'm right and you're wrong.
They both threw away all the mythos. They both
That's not true.
Everything about
that's not true.
Okay. All right. This is not a Star Wars. Well, save that for our get hyped about Episode 9.
They understood the franchise more. Sorry.
Here's what I'm gonna say about Iron Man 3 because I think it's definitely better. I do think I've watched these both recently. It is better than Iron Man 2. It's better paced. It's a little the dialogue. The one thing Shane Black brings to it is the dialogue is snappier. It's more interesting to listen to. The villain can be what it is, but villain problems exist throughout this list. That doesn't bother me as much. And I just disagree. What doesn't feel like a MCU movie is kind of the whole subplot of him being stranded in Tennessee in the snowstorm. Aside from that, everything else, a lot of the tenets are there. And the growth, the arc that Tony goes on from Iron Man 1 to Iron Man 3, I think there's a great button at the end of Iron Man 3 that had they not just completely forgot about it at the beginning of Age of Ultron, which is a criticism of that movie, that I would feel differently about the movie. But that said, again, I think it's a good movie. I think, but there's better ones. So next up, number 17 on the list, we're jumping. What are we jumping? A whole. Only 3 points ahead. No, excuse me, 9 points ahead. So another fairly big gap. Coming in at number 17, Thor.
Really?
Thor is.
I didn't expect that.
Yeah. Well, I could tell you. I know. I could understand that because you, good sir, ranked it the highest. You had it. You had it number 7 on your list.
Wow. There you go.
I love that movie. I absolutely loved the way that they shaped the characters, and although it does show how wise Odin is supposed to be, yet he's kind of dumb if you think about it for what he did. Like, yeah, Harold, let me just adopt this guy, and then let me just only say, hey, one of you guys could be the king. You guys got to fight. So basically,
you say dumb, I see deadbeat dad, but it's okay.
Yeah. So Connor, you are quite the dissenter in this one because you are the only person who has this in the top half of Marvel of the MCU. We had 2 people rank this in as their 20th choice of the films. We had a couple of 19s, a couple of 17s. So you really, you at least did Scott a solid by ranking it this high, so it can be higher than Iron Man 3.
Iron Man 3.
So thank you. I appreciate it.
I'll say this: the Thor movies just don't. They haven't ever really done it for me. I think that the mythology, and it's literally mythology, is just it may just be a bridge too far for me. Maybe that's just a matter of taste, but I've never found Asgard that engaging. So true. It's just it all kind of left me cold. So
of those though, I think that Branag's vision of Asgard is probably the most compelling, the most I'd like to explore a little bit more than Taylor's, and I mean Waititi didn't really get to go there, so I mean. And now he can't. So,
right, Oklahoma.
Can we just all agree that Jane and Thor's relationship is basically a throwaway joke now? Can we just all agree?
Yeah. Natalie Portman's career is kind of a throwaway joke too. It's true.
Yeah.
The one thing I missed from Thor 1 that I wish they would have carried over in 2 and 3, and
the Boilermakers.
No, shut up.
Blonde eyebrows.
No, and I'm all for a Led Zeppelin play a little bit, but the actual theme from Thor 1 is a really good theme.
Really good musical score.
Okay.
That's it.
That's it. Yeah.
It's the weakest of the Phase 1 films, and that includes Incredible Hulk.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree, and I would probably go back and watch. I'd go back and watch Incredible Hulk before I'd probably watch Thor again. So, but I have them right next to each other in my rankings. So anyway, moving on, coming in.
Sorry. I've never seen someone so equal parts upset, disgusted, and then concerned as Lou when Scott was coughing. Sorry.
Okay. So right. I contain multitudes, Craig. Thank you.
Actor.
All right. Number 16, 3 points up from Thor. So pretty close here, but kind of shockingly low for what it is. And that's our first time the Avengers are going to make this list. Number 16, Avengers Age of Ultron.
Yeah, it felt a little too dark, honestly. I did like Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. And Ultron was a good character, but it just felt like it just kind of felt flat. Like, why did he want to lift that city all the way up into the sky just to drop it? Okay, job's done.
Because it's a comic book movie.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying it was a good idea. I'm just like it was the most comic book thing he's ever done.
Yeah, it is a pretty big misuse of James Spader. I mean, like, not that he doesn't do well in it, but I think they tried to stuff too much into this movie.
Yeah.
And, that's one that could have served from a 2 hour, 38-minute runtime, like just adding a little bit of extra context and cartilage to each of these scenes. But I think it has a bad reputation that isn't quite as deserved.
Yeah, it's still a totally watchable movie. I just rewatched it the other day.
The action's incredible in this movie.
It really is, and the sucker does move. I mean, Joss Whedon knows how to pace. Aside, I mean, I know there's a lot going on in this movie, and it's not as well compartmentalized as some of the future MCU movies are. But there are things to like about it. And again, I think we're still in that lower tier, but it's still there's a lot to enjoy about it.
I will say when they all have to fight off the robots at the end of that little room, that is to this day the best gathering of the Avengers until Endgame when we get the better one.
Yeah, that shot's great. Yeah, that shot's great.
And there's some slow pan special effects shot.
Yeah,
ridiculous, man.
Right.
So
and and I think to me the biggest sin of Ultron is that it ignores the development of Tony Stark that happens in Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
And I thought I gave it more credit than it deserved because on the rewatch I kind of thought, oh yeah, well the PTSD that Tony has in 3 is really what motivates him to make Ultron in Ultron, but he doesn't ever acknowledge that. He doesn't ever, and I don't know if he had ever had that scene with Cap where he talks about like the nightmares and the terrors and all that stuff. I think that makes him a little bit more sympathetic and gives maybe Cap a little bit more understanding of him. And also the fact that, Iron Man 3 ends with him destroying all of his suits, except one, but by the beginning of Ultron, he got more suits. He just, so
he's got a whole legion.
Yeah. And we don't ever get an explanation why. So that one has more kind of logistical plot holes than some of the other ones. Okay.
Real quick, very first episode of the Front Row Movie Reviews, us fangirling about Age of Ultron. It was Jeremy, Tim, and myself long time ago, like almost 4 years ago now. It was a terrible episode. Go listen to it.
Yeah.
Also,
if you're enjoying
the first time in the MCU, we hear the word Endgame in this movie. So
yes. So yeah. If you enjoy our podcast now, go back and listen to all of our debuts. There's something else. Anyway, so Ultron, everybody agrees this is middle to upper lower tier. It doesn't range very far. The highest ranking was 13. Phil ranked it as 13. Donna had it at 18. Everyone else had it somewhere in the middle. So we're all pretty close. Not a big gap there. So we're going to do numbers 15 and 14 together because there's the same movie series and they are actually, oh shit, I just noticed this. We have a tie. Oh, we have a tie and it couldn't be a better fitting tie. 15 Ant-Man, 14, Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Wow.
At least she got the second one above it because the second one's a better movie.
I agree with you, and
lower stakes though.
Yeah, lower stakes, but I do think it is a lot more fun, and there's a lot. Right. Ant-Man has a lot of origin story problems, and I remember watching it thinking, man, we got to sit through another friggin' origin story. But Ant-Man and it's still fun, and I think Ant-Man and the Wasp is more fun. And the rest of the panel agrees, because on Ant-Man we got 3 people gave it a 16: Scott, Steve, and Aaron, and the highest was 11, and that was by Ryan Lutens. We have, and then a pretty big discrepancy on number 14, and this is the ladies duking it out. Aaron has it at 19. Donna had it at 7. So Donna's got it in her top 10. No one else has it in their top 10. Oh, except for Phil Rockwell's got it at 10. But everybody else has it, pretty in that middle ground too. Anybody got anything to say about the Ant-Man films before we move on?
Paul Rudd's a great Ant-Man.
Yes.
Outside of that, they're nice films. I mean, it's just one of those that they do feel like they're lower stakes. And
yes.
I was very tired when I saw Ant-Man and the Wasp. I fell asleep 3 times in that movie. I have not went back to go watch it because I felt like I didn't need to.
You should, man.
You should.
It's on Netflix.
That's the whole thing. I mean, I get it's lower stakes, but that was the point. It's a fun film. If you have dire stakes for everything, it's going to get old.
It was more of the Wasp than Ant-Man, honestly.
Well, and that's good because as much as we're going to talk about Captain Marvel in a bit, but we should all remember that the first female character to have her name in a title was the Wasp, and she earned it in that movie.
Yeah,
she did good. She did great.
Absolutely, and I think they're good. Not everything can be like the most dire stakes. So these fun little pockets that we can get, it's a good palate cleanser. I would say it's a lot of fun. And
it's our first reference to Dr. Doom. I'm sticking with that.
Okay, so now we have quite a jump here. So I think we've entered out of the lower tier, and we're now solidly in the middle tier because we have a 22-point jump. From Ant-Man, from our number 14 movie to our number 13 movie. So there's a big line here. So coming in at number 13, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You're all crazy.
That movie is a lot more contentious than I thought it was. I thought it was a good film. I think I do rank Guardians 1 over it only because of the feeling I had leaving the movie theater in Guardians 1. Nothing ill of the second movie and being a dad now, like that's a whole it's a relationship between a father and a son. I think it's really good. There's some really hokey moments in it, but that is because that is Peter Quill and that's that character. So I really enjoy that film, but I do think, it's one of those. I don't think I had it in my top 10. I mean, you have my ranking right there.
You had it. You actually had it at number 9. You had this at number. You do have this in your top 10.
I'm guessing I have it the highest.
You do. You have it at number 5.
Really?
And coming in, but yeah, we go all over the place here. Phil Rockwell has it at 19. He wins. By the way, if he's listening, and we'll tell him in the Slack chat later, he wins the Contrarian Award because he has the most either highest or lowest score of 11 of these 21 films.
Getting called quite a bit.
Yeah. Jeremy, you only have that. That only happens to you twice. It only happens to me 3 times. It happens to Scott 5 times. It happens to Connor a lot. Especially in these upper tier movies, which we'll get to. But yeah, the one thing I'll say about Guardians 2, and having done the rewatch, is I think it's a lot more. I enjoyed it more the second time, but also to me, it doesn't tie into much of the MCU as a whole, so it's a little bit more disposable, I guess, and that's not than some of these other ones, because we don't learn any big piece of information that you could take this out of the MCU canon and everything still makes sense. So it's maybe less essential, I guess, is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Did Peter Quill always have that power thing that Ego was telling him about, or? I was confused about that because, didn't he have some sort of power in Volume 2?
Yeah, he had. Ego is an Eternal, so Quill being one of his offspring would have some kind of dormant power in him, and it's something that they call out in the first Guardians that there's some kind of strange DNA within him.
Held the Power Stone.
Yeah, so I mean that was the reason why he was able to withstand that, and also like Nova Prime says that to him as well. But I will give you this though, Craig, is that I didn't see this when I was a father, but when I became a father and watched it again, the Yondu aspect of this movie really takes it up to a whole new level to me, because that ending is so impactful, and it takes someone like Michael Rooker to be able to do that. It was just that ending of this film really took it up a notch for me.
As Lou mentioned, I had this as 5, and I have Guardians 1 as 6, so I think they're really close together. Yeah. But the reason why I like this one more than Guardians 1 is, as we were saying, it's not an origin film. We know all these characters, and we dive right in. And not only does Yondu get some great time, but the Rocket stuff is amazing. And I think it's a good, fun film that has a great third act where everyone just goes to war against ego. It's great.
And the opening is amazing.
And I'll say this: it actually, I think its soundtrack is better than the first Guardians.
I agree. Close, man.
That's my take. I got to say, this is probably the second or third best soundtrack in the whole MCU. So moving on, then up to number 12, 6 points higher than Guardians Volume 2 is Thor Ragnarok. We had 2 people rank it up as their 6th. We had Ryan Lutens and Aaron had it as both in 6th place, but meanwhile we had Phil again, but joining him this time is Donna. They had it at 16.
Not Led Zeppelin fans.
No, and honestly, I don't have it that high either. I actually have it at 14. Because ultimately, the Thor character, I think it takes a lot to make Thor work for me, and I think he works best in an ensemble. And so the standalone movies, this is the best of the 3, clearly. But for me, it's just it's right in the middle.
I will give it this: some of the most stunning visuals in the MCU in this movie, like the art direction and the special effects team, are fantastic in this. I mean, just from the Battle of Asgard to the beginning, get with Surtur, every single thing, the Gladiator Pit, the effects in this are fantastic.
And I would agree with Lou that the ensemble piece is a must for Thor. But you also got to realize he is a comedic character, and they finally did that with this one, which is why I think it's the best of the films.
And Hemsworth is a comedic actor. Yeah. They finally let him be himself. You know.
What? Yeah, 100%. I think you're all right there. Okay, so here we are, right in the middle, number 11. 10 movies above it, 10 movies below it, but coming in 5 points ahead of Thor Ragnarok is Captain America, the First Avenger.
Wow. I'm just going to let Craig and Scott do their rage stuff here. How did that happen, man? I've always, like, the last time we did this, I'm pretty sure Captain America, the First Avenger was like number 4 for us, if I remember.
How many movies ago was that, though?
Yeah, that's true.
Because I think most of the movies above it are all more recent ones. Not to, in case for anybody's been paying attention, you can direct those right to me, Scott, because I'm the one who ranked this the lowest.
If I remember right, last time,
this needs to be a gift.
Yeah.
So Connor and Craig have it in their 5th place slot. I have it 18.
Wow. Well, I think we need to hear from you then, Lou, because I'll say my piece here in a second, but why so low for you?
Yeah, I'll do after him.
Because honestly, to me, you talked earlier about a movie that does movies that don't feel like MCU movies, and this movie, because it's that period piece, and it doesn't work. It didn't feel like an MCU movie to me when I watched it. And I'll just say, and I know I am in enemy territory when I say this. I don't find Captain America as a character all that compelling. Here's the thing.
Man, keep digging that grave, man.
Here's the thing. He is a benevolent figure. He loves America. He is good-hearted. He is everything moral and right and just and everything that we should want to be as people. I totally get all of that.
He's probably a blood donor.
He might be, but to me, but there's the arc of his character is he was a good-hearted wimp. Now he's a good-hearted strong guy.
I mean,
I know that's diminishing it, and he does, but he does better movies. He does better. Go ahead.
Well, let me just say, main reason. Well, first of all, yeah, this movie, what I liked about it is that it helped establish. We actually got to see Captain America in World War II, and to me, I think I mentioned this recently on a different podcast, but my favorite superhero growing up was The Rocketeer, and Joe Johnston has a way about making films set in that era that, to me, he's just perfect at it. Hugo Weaving was a great Red Skull.
Yeah, he was.
We had some remarkable like Tommy Lee Jones does a great job of going back and watching this movie. And then obviously Haley Atwell, I mean, it launches a TV series for her. And I just think that this particular film is a great way to introduce the world to this Captain America character, because a lot of people didn't know that he would have this kind of a story. And one of my favorite scenes is when they go out and they try to get him to sell war bonds, because
in the original costume.
The Alan Menken score behind that too is so amazing.
That's exactly, I mean, that is exactly what the government would have done with that super soldier. You know what I mean? They wouldn't have put him on the field. So I like that, because it shows him kind of getting to break free from that, and really shows that first time where he almost in a way disobeys. Well, he does disobey orders, because he kind of abandons this whole idea of war bonds to go and save his colleagues and his comrades. So, I really like this as a character building piece too.
There is so much good about this movie, and I stand behind this. This is the best superhero origin film we've gotten so far. And shush, silence, child. Isn't it past your bedtime?
Probably is, actually.
Yeah. And I mentioned that Thor, the Thor 1 had one of the better soundtracks. This is the best soundtrack. The trumpet score.
The theme to this movie is amazing.
When they released the soundtrack a few days before the film came out, I just blared it on YouTube because that's all they had it on. It was such a good score. And every person in this movie is great. You've already mentioned Hugo Weaving. You mentioned Haley Atwell, obviously Chris Evans, but Tommy Lee Jones chews scenery like nothing in this movie. when he's got Zola or Arnhem trapped, and Arm's like, "Well, you gonna torture me?" He's like, "I bought you breakfast or dinner. You know how hard it is to get a steak out here."
Yeah, my favorite line there was just like, "Oh, it's steak. What's in it? Cow."
And again, I agree with Craig. Joe Johnston. I mean, he probably couldn't make a modern film to save his life, but October Sky, Rocketeer, and Captain America are all great movies because of him.
Right. Yeah. And again, I'm not saying
only thing I'll give them in support. Without this movie, I don't think Winter Soldier is as good, because it sets up that man out of time aspect so well.
And look, again, I don't think this is a bad movie. I don't think most of these films are bad movies. But if we're parsing taste, I guess, I would rather watch a Shane Black MCU movie than a 1940s period piece MCU movie. That's just they're all, and that's what I do think is interesting about the MCU is they tinker with genre. A lot of these films try their own spin off of genre styles.
Yeah,
and I guess whether you like the films or not, I do think gets to whether or not you like that specific genre. And I have a feeling that's going to come back up later. But anyway, we'll move on. And I'll say in my defense, I had it at 18, but you had multiple people. You had 2 people at 10, 2 people at 13. Okay, Scott, we got to move on. We got 10 more movies. Okay. So here's another gap. Here's another jump. So now here we are, the top 10 MCU movies of all time so far. And coming in at number 10, Spider-Man: Homecoming.
This is a great movie. It's a great movie. I watched it last night. The comedy is perfect. It's pitch perfect. It aimed for that John Hughes feel, and it got it. And Holland is amazing as Spider-Man.
And Ned was amazing.
I don't know how you can be the one that doesn't know how you feel. This came in at number 10. You ranked it number 10. This is exactly where you wanted it to be.
My feelings may have changed since then. No, I don't know. I think it's because now I know that First Avenger is outside of the top 10 and that Homecoming is in the top 10. To me, I would have reversed those two, obviously. But It is a good film. Tom Holland, to me, is our best Spider-Man. Sorry, Toby, and sorry, Andrew Garfield, whatever that was.
Amazing Spider-Man was really good. Amazing Spider-Man 2 sucked.
Both of them, I think, were pretty bad in my opinion.
Time.
I love Tobey Maguire and Tom Holland.
Yeah. So you have a nice split here. Half of the panel has it in their top 10. Half of them doesn't. So you have Steve and Ryan at 12. That's the low score. The high score is Donna, who's got it in 5th. So everybody else, 9, 8, 10, and then 3 people have it as 11. Connor's got it at a 6. So it's got a little bit of space between Captain America. So I think it'll be interesting to revisit these again in 5 years, because I do think they're I'm not going to accuse this of a recency bias at all, but I think how that character grows. But I'll also say, I wonder how much of this is impacted by the fact that we got a better Spider-Man movie later, just 3 months ago or 5 months ago Into the
Spider-Verse. Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet.
That this maybe could have been higher. I don't know. But anyway, any thoughts on Spider-Man before we move on?
This is when Marvel finally started figuring out their villains, and Michael Keaton awesome in this.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yep.
But yeah.
All right. So here we are, coming in at number 9, the very first MCU movie, Iron Man.
Okay.
I can respect that.
It's another 12-point jump. So it's 12 points above Iron Man. The low score is 14. Phil Rockwell, once again, hello, everyone. And the high score coming in, Connor, I'm going to be saying your name a lot in the next couple of rounds.
Oh, boy.
You've got this at number 3. Okay. So everybody else kind of has it. Some have it in their top 10. Some have it just shy of their top 10. So here we are, number 9, Iron Man. And I'll be honest, I'll say I ended up, I was surprised at how low I ended up having this movie, because it's still in my top 10, but the impact that movie caught me so off guard the first time I saw it, because as someone who didn't read any of the comics and knew nothing of the character, I saw this because of word of mouth, and I was like, oh, I'll go check this out. And it was so freaking good.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
And here's the thing. It wasn't supposed to be. Iron Man is a B-list hero until now. But he was B-list. And the only reason why Marvel went to him first is because he's the only rights they had.
They didn't have anyone else.
So they're like, well, I guess we'll throw out Iron Man and hope for the best. So the fact that it is great says a lot.
Yeah, well, and the opening is amazing to this movie. If you haven't watched it in a while, like the first 5-6 minutes of this are just pitch perfect. Mm-hmm. And I mean, come on, it gave they took the chance on Robert Downey Jr. And I don't think without that this movie works or the MCU even exists without him.
That is true.
I'd agree, and to piggyback on that, to go back to something that you said, Craig, I really do think if it had been any other Avengers movie that came out first, the Avengers might not have happened.
Yeah.
I don't, because ultimately the other, like, Incredible Hulk doesn't do very well. Captain America doesn't do terribly well, at least by MCU standards, and neither does Thor. I think if any of those movies lead the MCU, I don't know if we're having this conversation today. Mm-hmm. Because it was so good, because Tony Stark is the most human of those characters, and is the most and is played so well by Robert Downey Jr. It's an interesting gateway into that world, and I think there'd be better movies that have come along, but I think this is a bit of a legacy pick for me to keep this.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a better film on its own than some of the other movies we've already talked about, but I think having it out of the top 10 would be insane.
It was the true movie of starting from nothing, going to become one of the most respected and one of the best, arguably one of the best superheroes of all time.
Yeah.
And I really respect what that they just did with that movie and how they started.
I don't disagree with you, but Iron Man's still a dick. In the comics and in the movies, he's still a dick.
He is. Oh yeah. He absolutely is, but he's he's a dick
But you
who's
think
trying.
you can change him, man.
He's trying. Not, he's a dick who's trying not to be a dick.
Yeah.
And he's been failing since 1966.
Okay.
Woohoo!
All right, so here we go. Number 8, really close to Iron Man. This one was neck and neck, and I think this is a bit of an upset because it's maybe not the most obvious movie we talk about in the MCU, but coming in at number 8 is Doctor Strange.
This movie is so underrated. It really is. I mean, like every aspect of it. It is a wonderful origin story. And I mean, an actor the caliber of Benedict Cumberbatch there, I mean, he has given it his absolute all, and the mythology that it sets up. I mean, like you got somebody as good as Mads Mikkelsen there doing like not very much work, but making it count when it needs to. And I mean, just the sheer level of talent in here, plus an amazing score. And Scott Derrickson is the exact right director to bring this kind of a movie to life because he loves creepy visuals and he knows how to use light to tell a story. So this movie has always been one of my favorites in the MCU.
Yeah, I would say it's not underrated. I'd say it's rated right where it needs to be. It's, I'd say good origin story, good redemption story for Strange.
Yeah.
And good introduction to a different type of superhero than we were used to in the MCU. Mm-hmm. That whole mythical and just magical superhero. So yeah, I enjoyed it. Good flick.
Well, it's definitely rated right according to our panel because 7 out of 10 people had this at either 8 or 9 on their list.
Nice.
The variance is
I'm gonna guess Phil.
Phil, yes, very good. You're winner. But on the positive side, he has this very high. He's got this number 4 on his list.
Am I the lowest?
You are the lowest.
Wow.
At number 13.
Scott, all right.
I mean, it's right in the middle there. There's about 4 or 5 movies that can interchange right there.
Yeah,
no, totally.
Yeah.
Totally agree with that.
Yeah, I think we can quibble about details.
This is your taste on like each day.
Yeah, honestly, I think you could divide these up in like 3 or 4 tiers and then move them interchangeably. But yeah, so there you go. All right, coming in at number 7. This is a 5-point jump up over Doctor Strange. The newest arrival, Captain Marvel, comes in at number 7.
All right,
I stand behind this.
I thought that this was a good origin story, a good way to finally introduce Captain Marvel after Infinity War. But I did think it lacked a little bit of storytelling and entertainment. Like, not entertainment, but, I mean, it seemed like it was missing something. Like, it just felt very serious, very just straight to the point with nothing, like, how do I say this? Nothing to drive it because it didn't really feel too important until the fact that you realize that she left in order to save other galaxies and stuff rather than staying on Earth. But I feel like they could have done something more with the character of Carol. But all in all, I did think it was a very great movie and it did deserve the ratings that it got, of how high ratings it got. And I thought that it was pretty good, but I did have some speculations about it.
You did, because you have it lowest out of our group. You had it at 14.
What? Oh, I forgot about that. My bad.
Yeah, I really liked it until I didn't.
So yeah, so we're gonna, well, but again, I think that's the thing is, again, as we talk about interchangeable, depending on your tiers, there's not a whole lot of difference between the 14th movie on your list and maybe your 10th or something. But to all the way on the other end of the spectrum, Donna had it number 1.
Wow.
Really? Wow.
This was immediately, without question, her, like, she looked at me, she goes, I know I'm probably biased, but that's my favorite one.
Well,
yeah.
We're all biased.
And Craig was talking about, and Craig and Lou were talking about the father-son relationship in Guardians 2. As somebody who has 2 daughters, this movie just made my heart swell. It was the fact that we have the whole idea of the story is a woman who throughout the movie is being told, do what men tell you to do. Make sure you smile more. Make sure you're polite. Make sure you don't use your powers because you shouldn't be doing that. You need to be good. And at the end, she just says, no, screw you. I'm going to blast you into a mountain. Yeah. I love this movie.
I thought that I thought that there was this one part where she was kind of like, I don't know, whenever that she was fighting the Skrulls on the ship and she was like running around in the handcuffs and stuff, and she would like make witty puns and stuff. I really enjoyed that. Like how she was handcuffed, yet she was still able to kick the hell out of these Kree creatures.
And you mentioned you mentioned the scrolls. That twist, no one saw coming. No one saw coming. And
that's a great swerve.
And it was good. And it actually was something that the comics kind of have done in the past too, but it was good. Loved it. The interesting thing is going to be, and I think you probably all know this, Brie Larson filmed her scenes for Endgame before she filmed Captain Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna be interested to see how she handles the character the first time, which we haven't seen yet.
Yeah,
maybe that's why she was so quiet during Captain Marvel. She was like, "Did all this just happen?"
Yeah, and for me, I've got this in my top 5. I think it's my highest origin story. This is my favorite origin story because it subverts a lot of the tropes of origin stories, which is somebody is like this personality, then they become a superhero. Now their personality changes. And in this case, the change in the personality happens not because of her superpowers. It's because of the way people are trying to control her powers.
Yeah.
And that kind of inner turmoil. And I get what you're saying, Connor, because some of the criticisms of the movie is, well, her character is not as bombastic or as out front as a lot of the protagonists that we see in the MCU, but with like kind of a 90s indie movie sensibility. I grew up in the 90s and I watched a lot of 90s indie films, and they're all about kind of these angstier characters learning something more nuanced about themselves. It's not like this huge growth arc. It's maybe more just this inner strength that they find, and this movie tapped into that. To say nothing about what it says about women finding their voice, and this is one of 2 movies on this list that I cried when I watched, and that scene where she finds her strength is so good, because again, as the father of a daughter, it hit me all in the feels, and it's got a bitchin' 90s soundtrack. Come on, So, any thoughts on Captain Marvel? Anybody have thoughts before we move on to our top 6?
If your PP hurt, I'm sorry. It was a good movie.
And with that.
All right. And with that, okay. Number 6.
Uh-oh.
This one hurts, guys. This hurts. Coming in number 6, it's Black Panther.
All right.
How does that hurt? It's in the top 10.
It hurts because it's my number 1.
Well, that's your fault.
Well, then, yeah, that would hurt you.
I think I had it like 4 or so.
You had it 4. Connor has it 12. He's once again he's our dissenter.
I want to say I was in like the 6 range with it or something.
You had it. Yep, you had it 6. Scott and Aaron had it 10. We had a couple of 2s in here. It barely makes it out of it's 1 point away from the top 5. But come on, guys. We were just talking 2 months ago about how we thought this thing should have won Best Picture. And we can't even.
It was up against Green Book.
And we can't even get it in the top 5 Marvel movies. What are we doing?
Well, that's because it was the only one nominated for it, though, out of all the movies. That's why I think that's why.
And for me, I do enjoy this in film quite a bit. The first 2 acts, and even the 3rd act. I actually the last fight scene really diminishes it. And actually, I think I had this right up there with. It was Iron Man, Black Panther, and Spider-Man were the 3 kind of right interchangeable. And I put it the last one of the 3 just because of that last fight scene.
I put it near the top where I did because, I agree with you. Like there's some CG problems with the movie at the end, but man, it's like I think me having it number 6 to me just shows me how strong this whole universe is, because every turn in this movie is fantastic. I mean, T'Challa is almost the forgotten character of this movie because everybody else is so good, especially Michael B. Jordan. One of the best villain turns I've ever seen in any movie, and just because of his acting prowess. So, yeah, it's tough, man. It just shows you how much quality is in this universe.
And, we were talking just a minute ago about female characters. I saw this film opening night in Alexandria, Virginia, and I was the only white guy in the theater, and it was fucking amazing.
Yeah, the cultural moment of this film can never be diminished.
Absolutely.
It will never be diminished.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the message, I think you said it right, kind of. The message of the movie is great, but to me, this movie, this this movie has more messages in it. Like I've seen this the most of any of the movies, and every time there's so many great themes and thoughts about it that just extend beyond the cultural moment that it created. There's, talking about, what we do with our gifts and how we share them with the world. And
the responsibility when you have more. It's a Spider-Man parable on a global level.
Exactly. And the, learning about the mistakes of our forefathers and our ancestors and breaking from tradition to try to be better than them.
Yeah. And not hiding from those mistakes.
Right. The father-son dynamic that exists there.
Oh, yes.
And the idea about, having your heritage taken from you and all of these things. I think it's such a rich movie. I think
who's getting messages, by the way? Stop. Mute your phone.
Can I update it? I think I want to break it higher.
Yeah. Like, it's just, I think to me, it's the movie that I get what you say about the CGI stuff, Scott. You're right. I mean, the CGI in that last fight scene obviously it's not up to some of the stuff that we're going to see later, but it's just, I think as a film, as an actual just film beyond a superhero movie, it's the best film of the group. But that's just me. But we're gonna move on. So I've gotten to vent a little bit, and now I'm gonna let some of you vent, because coming in at number 5.
I know what this is, man.
Only 1 point separated it from Black Panther, so these two could have flip-flopped in 5 and 6. But here it is, number 5. Captain America, the Winter Soldier.
It's top 5. I mean,
here we go.
Yeah, I mean, I have a hard time. I have a hard time getting too angry about it, because obviously we brought a person on this podcast that wasn't born when Winter Soldier came out. So, so we. But wow. No, truly, if you think about it, the Russos came off of Community and Arrested Development and made Captain America Winter Soldier, and really did a great job of bringing the spy movie genre. And what they do, they were like, you know what? We're going to go make a spy movie like a Robert Redford movie. Why don't we go get Robert Redford to be in this movie?
For real,
and, and Chris Evans just plays it a killer job. And I will tell you this, I just rewatched the Cap trilogy not too long ago, and Scarlett Johansson, people online, when Ant-Man and the Wasp was coming out and when Captain Marvel were coming out, they were like, the MCU just throws away their female characters. Black Widow hasn't done anything in any of these films. She owns that movie, and she saves Cap's life several times in that movie. It is really well directed. It is just a wonderful film, and to me, it should be ranked higher. I'm glad it's in the top 5. I mean, we have 2 more Avengers. We have 1 more Captain America film we haven't talked about. We have 2 more Avengers films.
Technically, you have 3 Avenger films. Civil War is Avengers 2.5.
So I get it. I mean, I understand. I understand where the bias.
Well, I'll give you this, Craig. Like, Scarlett Johansson's speech about trusting people in the car is fantastic. It is amazing writing and amazing acting, and the action in this movie is ridiculous awesome, especially the hand-to-hand combat. That elevator scene alone should get every award possible.
Yeah,
and Chris Evans going to the Smithsonian. I mean, that was a callback.
I feel like that in Captain Marvel, by the way, I forgot to mention this. It ties in with the Winter Soldier too. I feel like that at one point before that she fights the Skrulls when she's handcuffed, she says I forgot what it was, but she said some line like, you guys want to give up now or something like that, which I felt like that kind of got a bit of a Cap vibe from it whenever that it was in the elevator scene. Whenever that he was like, anybody want to get off?
You mean the elevator scene that you ranked like last?
Yeah. So here we go.
I have to give it props where it has it.
Okay. So Connor, this is the biggest gap. We had three people rank this in their number 1. We had 3. This movie got 3 first place votes.
Who was with me?
Craig, Ryan, and Phil had this at number 1.
I don't know how I feel about being with those 2.
Connor had it all the way down at number 20.
Oh man.
Do you need tucked in?
Anything higher in this, even this is only 3 points behind Civil War to get into the top 4. And it's 6 points behind our number 3 movie. So Connor, I'll hand it over to you about where your criticisms of the film. Why so low? Why so low, Connor? You're in a safe place. We're all friends here.
No, you're not.
Scott says otherwise. But I like the movie itself. I thought it was good. It had some amazing fight scenes and imagery and stuff like that. But it did feel like less of an Avengers movie, or not Avengers, the Captain America movie. And it felt like there were a lot of things that could have been resolved easier. Like, this was around the time that the Avengers were a thing. So why didn't they just call in the Avengers, except for the fact that it would have cost like a lot of money from the studio executive just to pay them to get on. Like, they could have just called in the Avengers to help out with Hydra and everything like that, in all honesty. But I did enjoy it, because as I always say, there's no such thing as a bad Marvel movie. But I just wouldn't exactly watch it over and over again.
So why didn't they call the Avengers? So of course you ranked Iron Man 3, Iron Man 2, well, not Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3, Doctor Strange, basically everything after Avengers 1 you ranked negative, right?
No. Here's okay. I'm gonna come in and help the young lad for a minute here. Because I will say this, and on the rewatch, I rewatched Winter Soldier 2, and it's an expertly crafted film. There's no doubt about it. Yes. I do think in these standalone movies, that question you asked, Connor, is, well, why don't they just call the other Avengers for this? This is the one movie where I think that question actually should be asked. Because in like the Iron Man 2 and Iron Man 3, maybe Iron Man 3 because he is attacking the president, but Iron Man 2 is this kind of rival company. All the Thor movies take place in outer space, so that doesn't really matter. But in this one, Nick Fury supposedly dies and S.H.I.E.L.D. is compromised.
Quote unquote.
Captain America has literally he knows no one he can trust except for the 4 people he just helped save the world with. Like,
he had Shawarma with them, damn it.
Right. I mean, he could have called even one of them, Banner, Tony, so to me, I hear that criticism. I don't think it doesn't ruin the film for me at all.
Oh no.
I've got it in my top 10. But I just want to say is someone, I hear you, Connor. I see you and I hear you.
Well, and here's the thing too. This movie, it's 6 years into the MCU, and it came out in 2014. Mm-hmm. It's got a whole bunch of movies behind it. This is the first time in the theater where I verbally said, "Oh shit," when Hydra showed up and took over S.H.I.E.L.D. Because that was, again, mind-blowing. And we think about it now, it's like Hydra and S.H.I.E.L.D. both are kind of not really a thing anymore, so it doesn't really matter. Right. Back then, that was a gravitational shift for the entire universe moving forward. And that took a lot of balls. Most comic book companies and most franchises, DC, would never throw everything out with the bathwater like that. And they did. And it's also Captain America who's the best character. So that's why.
They kind of did something though that kind of affected them, because then it put a huge plot hole with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
No one gives a shit about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
I don't. No, I don't.
No one watches it, and no one gives a shit about it. So.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna sit over here and try not to say things.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So we had So we had 3 people have it out of the top 10. We had 3 people rank it as their number 1 movie, and everyone else somewhere in between. So here we go. Barely beating it out, another Captain America movie, 3 points ahead. Coming in at number 4 is Captain America: Civil War.
Yes.
Interestingly enough, this movie doesn't get any first place votes as opposed to Winter Soldier, but it does much better kind of communally. Everybody but one person has it in their top 10. So Steve Sykes, Phil's got it number 9. Steve Sykes has it number 11, and Connor has it number 2. So everyone else has it somewhere in between. And
so are you telling me that this whole GD ranking came down to whatever Connor said?
Yes. This is why we should number them differently.
So here's what I'll tell you. When it came to the top, not the top two, because the top two were pretty well set. Because before Connor gave, I have BC before Connor rankings, and I have after. and I can tell you numbers 3, 5, 6, numbers 3, 5, and 6 shift dramatically. Everything else pretty much stayed the same. But yeah, so I'll give you the alternative after this. But yeah, I love Civil War. I think this movie's this is my I have it number 4, so I'm happy with it landing at number 4.
Yeah, and I thought that when I saw the battle on Titan, that in Infinity War, that was my favorite fight scene ever. Before I rewatched the airport scene, and there's just no beating that fight scene. I mean, it is just so expertly done, and every moment of that is just insanely thrilling. It's literally the most perfect scene I think the MCU's ever produced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to me, it launches kind of an era, and maybe it does start a little bit with Winter Soldier, of where all the movies. It feels like all the movies since Winter Soldier on, and really give you stuff to think about in terms of in terms of the conflict, and obviously by pitting the Avengers against each other, you're going to take sides, and you're going to be more willing to hear what the other side has to say because you care about all of these characters, as opposed to, oh well, he's the villain, whatever he says is wrong. And it just shows that they couldn't come up with compelling villains for the MCU, so they just had to make the MCU make the Avengers their own villains.
Yeah, but I mean, like, the philosophy makes sense. The philosophy of both sides in this makes sense. In the Civil War comic, it's pretty easy to see Captain America is clearly in the right.
And in
this one, they make at least Tony's case a lot more compelling in the movie version of this story.
Yeah,
I just only if you support douchebags.
Well, I mean, of course we do, man. What are we doing here?
Oh, okay. Oh, excuse me, Mr. Politician, who would you would be totally in favor of deregulation and no government oversight.
Dude, I'm on a school board. If I'm overseeing superheroes, that's an upgrade. Then we can go.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So, but come on, I think he's got. It's an introduce. And by the way, the other part that I love about this movie, because it ties into my favorite one, is the introduction of T'Challa, and it gives us bears us origin story for Black Panther for the Black Panther standalone movie,
kind of a preview,
which is so awesome. It introduces that character in a really good way, brings him into the fold quickly. It introduces Spider-Man. I think it's cool. It's so well done, and it really does set the table well for Infinity War.
Spider-Man's entrance was just so good. The stealing the shield flip, and then
on the roost.
All right. Any other comments before? Well, here we are, top 3. What do we got? Anybody? All right.
Infinity War is number 1. I'm just saying it. It's got to be
2 Avenger films and something else.
Yep. So, and here is that something else.
You don't know something else? Come on, man.
Coming in number 3, 3 points ahead of Civil War, is Guardians of the Galaxy.
Go, Craig.
All right.
The Star Wars for our generation. And I know that we have Star Wars films now, but Guardians of the Galaxy is the space opera that we didn't know that we needed, and that we definitely deserved after watching it. But it was great. It's such a fun film. It's weird. I have a hard time explaining this to people, and Guardians of the Galaxy is one of my top 5 favorite movies, but it's not my number 1 in the MCU. And Winter Soldier is not one of my top 5 favorite movies. So I don't know. Like, I get that that's weird. That's odd. But at the same time, like, I love Guardians, and I can go back and watch that movie all day, every day, and love the characters and the world that it built for us, or shall I say the space that it built for us.
Well, I think you make a good point, Craig, in that what you choose for this list is what everybody's criteria is going to be different. Some of it's going to be, historical purposes. What's it going to be? How well does it represent the MCU? What movies would you show to a friend who wanted to get into the MCU? I would say, and I didn't say this about Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier is the MCU movie you show to people who don't think they would like a superhero movie, because it's the movie. I think it's the movie that, not to backtrack too much, it's the movie to me that feels the least like an MCU movie. It feels, like you said, like a 70s spy thriller action movie that just happens to have a superhero, much in the same way The Dark Knight does. Doesn't feel like a traditional superhero movie. But anyway, Guardians, yeah, I think you could show this to people who had never seen a Marvel movie, and they'd have a lot of fun with this movie.
Yeah, just a real life example. This is Sarah's favorite MCU film by far, and it's because it's just so enjoyable, and the comedy works really well. I mean, James Gunn's comedy is so on point in this movie.
Yeah, I'm so glad he's been rehired. So glad.
Yes.
So yeah, this was a pretty this one kind of was all over the place. We had two people give it their number 2. We had Craig was number 2, gave it 2, and Erin had it as her second favorite as well. Once again, Connor, you're the contrarian of the group. You have this down at 11. So
of course I did.
Yeah, but everyone else has it in their top 10. Couple of people have it in their top 5, but yeah, really pretty close between it and Civil War. All right, here we go.
But these two make sense as the top 2.
These two make absolute sense.
I hope I have them up right.
It is. Go ahead, Greg.
No, go ahead. I just think I will give a devil's advocate argument to one of them that I don't believe in, but I want to at least give it. So sure. Go ahead.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So, and again, we've got a sizable gap here. There's a 16-point gap between numbers 2 and 3. So I think we have a clear consensus, not just for number 2, but for number 1. But so coming in at number 2, The Avengers.
Yes. Okay.
Makes sense.
This movie has a one person gave it. It has one first place vote from Steve. Its lowest score is a 9 from Ryan, but almost everyone. Oh yeah, you're off the hook on this one.
Yeah.
So, but almost everyone had this in their top 5. The only 2 people that 8 out of the 10 panelists had it in their top 5. The only 2 that didn't were Ryan and Craig, who had it just outside the top 5 at number 6. So, thoughts on The Avengers as the second best Marvel MCU movie?
Up until Infinity War, this was my favorite MCU film, and for many reasons. One, it's a really good movie. Yeah. Joss Whedon is great at writing dialogue. It's got a fast-paced moving to the third act, and the third act is mind-blowing. But the main reason why this film is still number 2 for me, at least I think it was, is this was everything in my childhood where we thought it would never happen. They could never do this. And sitting down in the theater with many of you people and seeing after the opening tag with Loki and S.H.I.E.L.D., the Avengers just going across the screen.
Yeah.
It was a monumental moment for fanboy Scott, and it will continue to be high ranked just because the fact that they pulled it off. And we don't get any Infinity War or anything else without this film.
Yeah, this movie's really a miracle, and I think to me, one of the things that I would say, even above what ultimately the number 1 is going to be, if I had a gauntlet and I had to snap, and 20 of these movies got erased, and I only had to leave one on this list for the world to have as a representative, it would have to be The Avengers. I don't know if it's. I don't think it's the. I don't. To me, Black Panther spoke to me more as a film than the Avengers did. But man, this if somebody came up to you and said, "I'm only ever going to watch one MCU movie. Which one should it be?" I don't. I think this would be the one, right? Am I wrong? Because Infinity War has way too much context to I think outside of Avengers, and the other ones all tie into each other. This one, I think you could just.
Well, this is the one movie that I actually started watching the MCU movies because, believe it or not, I was actually very late to the party on some of these. Like I started with the Avengers.
We're not shocked.
I'm sorry. Connor's never coming back on the show. It's okay,
Connor. We appreciate you, Connor. You're really bringing in a new demographic for us. I love it.
I thought I actually was kind of impressed as to how that they brought in Thor, though. The fact that they pulled him in using Loki, I thought that was very clever the way they did that. Because like, how else would they have brought in Thor? Like, just have him randomly show up to Earth, be like, "Hey, I'm here, a dude with a hammer. And so,
and Loki was a great villain. He was the best villain until he's probably the best Marvel villain in this current iteration of Marvel until Purple Man in Jessica Jones. And then obviously now we've gotten some killer villains between, but Keaton's Vulture and Thanos.
Killmonger.
I mean, Killmonger. Like we've gotten a lot of really great villains. But for a long time there, like Loki was the one shining example of like a really, really great villain. And it was in this film.
Have you all heard the retcon the Russos put out about Loki and Avengers? No? Nobody? Mm-hmm. They have said in several interviews that Loki was being controlled by Thanos through the Mind Stone.
Oh, I knew that.
Congratulations.
Sorry, I just had to my bad.
All right. Yeah. No. I heard that too, and I guess that's because we all want to like Loki, and he just So we'll come up with a reason why he's not so bad. But any thoughts before we reveal our number one in case anybody hasn't been paying attention?
Great movie.
All right. So here we are. We made it, folks, all the way to the top. The number one movie of the MCU, according to the front row panelist, is Avengers: Infinity War.
Boom.
This movie, again, another wide gap, 14-point difference between it and the Avengers.
That's incredible. What give like most of the rankings?
Okay, here's the breakdown. This movie got 4 first place votes. Scott, Jeremy, Aaron, and Connor all had it number 1. It had 3 second place votes, myself, Ryan, and Phil. It had 2 third place votes, Donna and you, Craig. The only person who didn't even have it in the top 5 was Steve, who had it number 8, so it's still in his top 10. So 9 out of 10 panelists had this in their top 3 Marvel. So I mean, when you're
average,
it's a bit, the average on it is huge. Everybody, I think we're all. I don't even know if this is a recency bias, because I think it's just we're all so moved in the scope of what they accomplished. And we talked about it at the beginning of the podcast, the scope of what Infinity War accomplished.
Yeah, this is the only choice to me. I mean, and it was the Avengers for the longest time, but the fact that Infinity War works as well as it does just makes it a clear number 1 to me.
I guess I want to see it come in for a landing before I would say it's the absolute best MCU film. And I know that in its own right, it's a standalone film and that it gives the story of Thanos. But obviously, our heroes are, it's like at the end of the old 66 Batmans where it was like, same Bat channel, same Bat time, like we are going to see these heroes again. And so that's the only thing, that's my only trepidation about putting it number 1. And obviously I didn't. I have number 3. It's a great film. But I do think that there is a legitimate argument to be made that we don't know that Endgame is going to come in for a smooth landing yet. Like we're obviously extremely hopeful, but would that tarnish at all Infinity War potentially?
I'll give you 4 words as to why it's not going to be. The Empire Strikes Back. Everybody.
Not a bad point.
Everybody considers Empire to be the best Star Wars movie, and it's the one that ends with the bad guy essentially winning in the cliffhanger at the end. And Return of the Jedi builds off of that, and it's and unless Endgame proves to be a better film, because I think Jedi was met with has a mixed fan base, shocker amongst the Star Wars fans, but. That I think but I don't think, I think what I'm getting at is a middle act or a cliffhanger movie can have that can still hold up if despite what the next chapter of it does.
So what you're saying is Endgame's going to have Ewoks.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
Porgs. We'll have
porgs. Yeah.
Heck yeah, we got through quite a list there. Lou, that was good job compiling it all together. And Connor, I'm glad that you were on with us, and I apologize for several of my jokes. I do want you to know that I'm an academic advisor to school, so when you get ready to pick a college,
in 20 years,
and I'll help you out.
3.
Oh my God!
All right.
I am old.
So no, I look. I think I thank you for coming on, Connor.
Absolutely.
And just I said this earlier. So just to be clear, before Connor entered his rankings, our top 5 would have been Infinity War, Avengers, Winter Soldier would have been number 3, Guardians was 4, and Black Panther would have been 5, Civil War would have been 6. So everything else is pretty much the same, but otherwise, so Civil War got bumped up, Winter Soldier took a hit, and so did Black Panther. But anyway,
your vote counts, kids. Your vote counts.
That's right.
Even when you're wrong, your vote counts.
But no, I want to thank you guys for coming on. Obviously, this was another long one, but hey, it makes sense. It's going to be the longest Marvel movie. It should be the longest podcast we do, and hopefully, let us know what you think in the comments section. If you're watching us on YouTube, what do you think of our rankings? Anything too high, too low? Lists are great. Let's argue about them. It's fun. We're going to have this up on our Facebook page. If you're listening to the podcast version, you can go and we'll open this up on the chat so that people can see our final rankings and see where we all land and what our top Marvel movies are. And now you can weigh in and give your thoughts on it as well. And of course, now that Endgame's upon us, we're going to be wall-to-wall coverage of Endgame. We're going to have, I'm sure, a full disclosure coming your way. Is that right, Jeremy?
Yeah, absolutely. They'll do that. We'll have some rapid reactions, of course. And that whole weekend is going to be wall-to-wall, just nonstop coverage of the MCU and Avengers Endgame. So just go to Front Row Network on Facebook or Instagram at Front Row Reviews with a Z on Twitter or frnpod.com to find any of it all weekend long.
Awesome. And so we did have some comments so we want to thank you, some of these people who are watching us. And please like, share, subscribe to our YouTube channel, like and subscribe to our podcast. Find everything that we're doing. We got lots of stuff going on. But before I go into all of my plugs, Connor, I believe you have delved into the podcast world too. Why don't you tell us about that?
Well, on my podcast called the Doghouse Podcast, I like to invite my friend, who is also a co-host, Yesify, and we talk about our projects, pop culture, music, and basically just about any conversation we can spark without any preparation at all, which proves how young and irresponsible we are. So,
I like that. I like that.
Cool.
Fantastic. Yeah, go find it, guys. It's a great podcast.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Check that all out. You can check out my podcast, Guilty Pleasures. We just dropped our wrestling-themed film, No Holds Barred, came out a couple weeks ago. We had a lot of fun talking about that. And coming up is one of our listener requests. We're going to be talking about Malibu's Most Wanted. You can find that on the Guilty Pleasures feed and all sorts of stuff that we got coming up. Hey, summer movie season is upon us. We're going to be covering so much stuff. Too much to cover here. So the best way you can follow us is by liking us on Facebook, the Front Row Network. You can find our website, frnpod.com, and you can follow us on Twitter at Front Row Reviews with a Z. Craig, what's going on with Beyond the Mouse?
We're just about to release a feed-only episode of Brett and Vanessa. They went on a trip to Disneyland without me. I hate them for it, but they did a recording of that. And then we've got just a lot of great movies coming forward. We've got a new Toy Story coming out this summer. We've got a live-action Lion King. We've got just a bevy of great Disney movies. And Aladdin will be coming out very shortly. So we'll cover it all for you, and you'll be able to see it all at Beyond the Mouse.
At least one of those movies is going to be good. At least.
About to be.
All
Not
right.
Toy Story 4.
All right. Did I miss any plugs or anything else we want to get to before we get out of here? All right, cool. Well, if you can, and as always, you can follow me on Twitter at the Fake Lou Hair. Let me know what you think about our rankings. Let us know, how hyped are you for Endgame, and we will be back when it is all said and done to talk, to cry, maybe to some group therapy, maybe in order. Who knows? Or maybe, as Scott says, everybody lives, and we can all rejoice together in good, triumphing over evil. So thank you all for coming on tonight. Thank you for watching us wherever you are listening. But that's going to do it for us at the Front Row. So we hope you are hyped for Infinity War, or excuse me, for Endgame. You'd be hyped for Infinity War 2. That's a good movie too. We hope you're hyped at Infinity War 1. We hope that you're hyped to see Endgame. But until next time, for the front row, I am Lou Hare.
I'm Jeremy Geckner.
I'm Craig McFarland.
I'm Cranky.
I'm Condog Z.
And as always, we'll see you in the front row.